Insanity is relative. It depends who has who locked in what cage. But one man's insanity is another man's faith. Faith is a survival horror game developed by Airdorf Games, and it is a game with 3 chapters to it. While each acts as their own game themselves and was released as their own game, they are beautifully collected in the unholy trinity. Now looking at the game, yes, it is beautifully inspired graphically by the Atari 2600 era of games like E.T. and Dragster. Oh damn, this shit goes hard. And we follow one man's journey, a John Thomas Ward, a former priest from Palmyra, New York, and we join him on September 21st, 1987.
It's been 1 year since I first went inside that house. I have to finish what I started. What I am about to do has not been approved by the Vatican.
Chapter 1. The Martins. We open with John pulling up on the side of the road alongside a forest. His previous comments about having to finish what he started will instantly tell us that he is going back to a location to finish something that he did before wherever he is going in these woods. So we venture into the woods now. The woods are an interesting location. They seem endless and they loop upon themselves, and you can easily lose yourself in the woods if you don't know exactly where you are going. And it feels as if someone or something is here with us. What the fuck is that thing? Well, if in doubt, use the power of God himself to repel the creature of the night, repelling the creature back into the woods itself. Now, if you repel the creature 10 times, it drops a note and gives us some juicy information on the world itself. Father Garcia, you are hereby instructed to release Michael Davies from your care and return him to his home immediately. Mr. and Mrs. Davies have already been contacted by our office. A representative of the church is currently en route to their home to discuss compensation in return for their discretion. You will meet our representative there and accompany him back to Rome. Cardinal Gifford. Okay, so we are given a few names here. Father Garcia, who the letter is directed to, Mr. and Mrs. Davies, Cardinal Gifford, who is writing the letter, and Michael Davies, who is to be released from Garcia's care and returned home. So why does this monster have the note on it? Well, it obviously is a link to these characters in some way, but at the current moment, we cannot answer this question exactly. Design-wise though, it is a very cool monster. It is obviously inspired by the Rake itself, a classic creepypasta monster, and I love it. It's just such a cool design in my opinion, and it just fits the overall world here in the woods itself. Exploring the woods more, you can find some interesting sights like a ritual site with a corpse of a fox in the middle of it, and getting close to it, a voice exclaims, "Chaos reigns." Chaos reigns. Finding it in a tree and exercising it, we can obtain another note. God, it's getting aggressive, Jesus. Today I noticed Amy's favourite tree. Looks like it's dying. All the needles are falling off of it and the bark is peeling. I guess I'm more upset about it than Amy is. She is totally absorbed in her volunteer work at the clinic. I guess it's a good thing that she found something she's passionate about, but I've gotten ugly looks from some of the women at the book club. Kathy and her religious friends won't even talk to me anymore. The Martins are the family that we visited before, the thing that John was on about doing a year ago. And the Martin household is the house that we are returning to at the moment. But an Amy is totally absorbed in her volunteer work at a clinic, a respectable job for a young girl to pursue. But interestingly is the last sentence. Kathy and her religious friends won't even talk to me anymore. The way this sentence is structured is obviously meant to read as if the first point of Amy getting the job at the clinic is what the writer here believes is the reason these religious folks and Kathy herself are no longer talking to her. So my next question was, what kind of clinic is it? What are we dealing with here? Well, religious folks don't like a lot of things, but my mind instantly thought of an abortion clinic. So it must be that, no? Well, it's not. The creator himself has already commented saying that the clinic itself is just a childbirth clinic. So it's kind of a bit odd that this job would be then looked at that, but maybe there's a reason for that. We'll just have to discover more as we uncover more evidence for this. Continuing our odyssey into the woods, we can eventually find a pile of bones, and purifying them, we get another note. Bob, The kids and I miss you more every day. The twins and Amy have started their next school year here at home. Amy keeps asking when she's going to be allowed to go to a real school. I think she's getting cabin fever. The twins are having no problems occupying their time. Yesterday they came in with their hands covered in blood. I guess they found a dead deer and thought it would be a good idea to touch it. I think we might have a coyote problem, because when I went out with them to look at the dead deer, it was a pretty gruesome sight. All this just a day after the twins' birthday party. Can't wait till you come home. So we get some more information of the Martin family structure. The father, or Bob, seems to be away from home doing work in another place, and we'll find out that he's a missionary who was sent abroad to do missionary work. But the twins just had a birthday party, more specifically their 6th birthday party, from this little invite we can find in the woods, as well as directions to the Martin household. But the dead deer and blood, that isn't ominous at all. Following the instructions given to us by the note, we arrive at the house, but
It's locked.
it is locked. So wandering the woods even more, and you'll eventually find a small shack with a note describing the Martin house, which was written by John himself. Scattered about the first chapter are notes written by John about what happened a year ago, and it describes a very gruesome scene and terrifying scene at that. The previous experience was an exorcism that John attempted with his mentor on Amy, so that's why we were here in the past with Father Gifford. We were attempting to do an exorcism on Amy, so Amy is obviously possessed, and could be why the religious folk look at the family funny. In the shack we obtain a key. Best thing out the window. And now we can return to the Martin household and enter the house itself. Inside the house we can obtain a few more notes about what happened last time we were here, and we can just look around the house in general. But a couple of things I want to note real quick is on John's second note, with him mentioning they first met Amy in the basement, but then she was in the attic in the next sentence. This reads like a mistake, and my initial thoughts was it seems like a mistake, but it actually happened in real life, and it sort of ties into her possession in a way. She teleported from one end of the house to the other, and also she knows Latin. What a talented girl. Another key point in the house is the family portrait. A family portrait is meant to have every member of the family within it. So where are the twins? This household has 5 members that we know of, the mum, the dad, Amy and the twins, but there's only 3 of them in this portrait. You might think, oh, they're too young, they were just born, but they're 6. They've just had their 6th birthday party. I feel that's kind of late to leave getting a family portrait done. Like, I feel like you get that done within the first few years just to get it, like, sorted. So why not replace it a few years back? It just seems a bit odd to me, but hey, maybe they haven't had the time to get the family portrait done. Another rather interesting piece that we can find in the house is in the kitchen on the fridge, and it is a picture drawn by Nate, and it shows a large black figure that looks a bit gangly, grabbing what looks to be a man in a red robe. This links into one of the endings, as this is one of the cultists, so Nate is obviously drawing something that he's seen, and this links into one of Mrs. Martin's notes, more specifically her 4th note that you can find in the bathroom. It reads, "I don't feel safe in my own home anymore. I hear voices outside around the house at night. I don't let the twins go out in the woods to play because I'm afraid of what's out there. The house itself feels stressed, distorted, slanted somehow. It's like I'm walking through a carnival funhouse. Amy's condition has only gotten worse. I can't stand to be around her, and I don't know why. She just doesn't seem like herself anymore. I want to take her to the doctor, but I can't leave the boys here. I find that the phone stops working throughout the day, and now I can't seem to find my car keys. Thank God Bob comes home tomorrow." Looking all over the house, you'll find no sign of the girl that you're searching for. So if you clear the house in a normal way, the way you're meant to, going top to bottom, you'll eventually be left with just the basement remaining. Going down there, you can find another note by exercising the baby crib. Interestingly, the baby crib needs to be exorcised, almost as if a spirit of a young child was trapped within it. But the note you receive is from a Leighton. "Dear Amy, thanks for writing. It really brightened my day hearing from you. In your letter you asked what's the weirdest thing I've seen as a missionary. The area we're working in has lots of folks who practice Quimbamba. It's what you might call a pagan religion. It's kind of a mix of Catholic and African religions. One of the saints they worship is San La Muerte, or Saint Death. Yesterday we talked to a boy, about 15, when we asked him if he had ever prayed. He said, no, but I have prayed to San La Muerte. He told us about a time when he stayed over at his cousin's house, and according to him, they prayed to some figures of San La Muerte, and the figures made things in the house move around. He got real quiet and scared after that. We told him he could pray to God and that God wouldn't make him feel scared like that. We invited him to church, but he hasn't come yet. I need to wrap this letter up and get back to work. See you in 4 months. Later. Now, why am I highlighting this? Well, not only was Bob a missionary, and this is another missionary himself, but it does show that Amy did have interests or was a religious person, like her father. But the Saint of Death, or San La Muerte, a South American saint of death, and they share a striking resemblance to death themselves. Scythe, skeletal figure, but honestly you could insert any non-Christian based figure here, and I think this small piece of information is meant to be that seed that was planted within Amy's mind about her questioning her faith, about what is real, and this is what led her to be possessed by whatever demon got a hold of her. As it is said in Christianity, a person who has true faith and is a true believer cannot be possessed by evil. They can only be influenced by it, not possessed. Heading to where the first exorcism took place, and the game now cuts to Amy's bedroom. Spooky. We now have our first boss battle. With Amy continuing the engagement, we can find a letter written by John for someone called Molly. Molly, the church might contact you in a few days to tell you their version of what happened to me. I want you to hear it from me first. A year ago, I was involved in an exorcism of Amy Martin. What they said in the papers about what happened there isn't true. She killed my superior, Father Allred, with her bare hands. When I confronted her, she escaped, managed to cut the power to the house, and strangled her own parents with their own intestines. I have to go back to that house. The nightmares I'm having are real. She's still there, waiting for me. I can still help her. If I don't come back, know that I love you, and I'm sorry, John. Why is this letter here? It is written as though it is meant to be sent out as soon as possible, with him probably telling his wife or girlfriend, whatever Molly is, what happened. But the letter is here now. So somehow this demon can influence physical things unrelated and far away from the house itself, almost as if it's trying to protect its identity and keep that it is possessing this girl a secret. Continuing the fight, we anger the demon so much that an arm will shoot out of Amy's face, and continuing to use the power of God, it recedes back into her face and it drives her away and out of the window. What are we doing now? Now, if you collected all possible notes up to this point, a new note spawns in the front room, with it describing a ritual called the Second Death, but more interestingly is a nice new paint job spelling out "kill her" backwards, and a single shot rifle lays on the floor. We only get 1 bullet, so we can only kill 1 thing. So let's shoot the mirror. God, you man live such weird. Breaking the mirror, we are pulled into another dimension and fight the mirror demon. Well, let's use Christ again, and defeating it, it drops yet another note for us to read, and this one is very interesting. October 23rd, 1986. Dear Dr. McGlashan, it has been 30 days since the beginning of my treatment here at Yale Psychiatric Institute. Dr. Spinell, who has been so patient with me, has helped me understand my afflictions, and has helped me find a way to move forward and accept the truth. With Dr. Spinell's help, I have come to accept what really happened in September at the Martin family residence. I accept that what has happened was not the result of any supernatural phenomenon, but rather the desperate actions of a young girl driven to violence by her dogmatic parents and the old church rituals that are thought to drive out evil. I'm happy to report that, since accepting the truth, my nightmares have ceased and I now enjoy peace of mind that I have not felt like since the incident. Given my progress since coming here, I respectfully request my release from Yale Psychiatric Institute contingent upon follow-up appointments with Dr. Spinell in the future. Sincerely, John Ward. This note is written just under a year before the date we are given at the start of the game, and it seems that John here, after the events that took place a year ago, was committed to a psychiatric institute, with him apparently accepting that what happened last year was not the work of devils and the supernatural, but a young girl driven to violence by her dogmatic parents, who were influenced by the old church themselves. And Dr. Spinell seems to be the doctor treating John, so it seems that John did get out either by being let out or escaped, and he returned to where this shit went down. But this one letter now plants that seed of doubt in your mind about John. If he was admitted to a hospital for psychiatric and mental reasons, can we trust anything that he wrote down in the past or what we are seeing currently? Maybe he is just killing all these people for the sake of it and because he wants to, and he's making up this reasons just to make himself feel better. And Amy might have just jumped out the window to just avoid us from killing her. But interestingly, the creator in an interview with Wendigoon said that John didn't write this letter, but another character did. Now, when I first heard this, I thought that seemed a bit lazy, as though to make the story make a bit more sense, because this letter makes you question why he came back, as I thought it was John questioning his faith in general, and the whole game has to do with faith in general and questioning it and it being tested, so I thought it fit into that sort of general narrative and story point. But let's take a look at this letter again that John wrote in the ward and the one that he wrote to his wife, Molly. If you want to figure out if someone truly wrote a letter, look at the wording and sentence structure and the way people sign it. We know that the fact that John wrote the letter to Molly, and when he opens this letter, he opens with just her first name. But in this new one, he opens with dear, and then doctor, and then second name. It's a different opening, of course it's more formal, but it seems a bit odd. And then he ends it with a sincerely full name. But the other one, John writes with just his first name. He ends it just John. John doesn't seem to be very formal when he writes. He writes in a very casual manner, which is also seen in the sentence structure, and wording also follows suit, being very casual. But the one written to the doctor is extremely formal. It's written like a teenager writing an English essay. Each word feels purpose chosen to get the exact feeling across and thing that he wants out of it. It just feels very formal, and it doesn't feel like John would naturally write this letter. It feels as though someone else wrote it, and we'll find out who wrote this letter later. But now with the gun, we can now talk about the endings for Chapter 1. Chapter 1 has 5 different endings, with one of them, in my eyes and within the community, seemingly being the canon ending. So we'll leave that one for last. First up is the murder ending. Basically, take the gun, find Amy in the woods and shoot her in the stomach, and then walk away back to your car and drive off. But the gunshot alerts the police find you, pull you over, and you are arrested for killing someone. Police arrest man accused of murdering missing girl. A New York man is in custody after he confessed to the murder of a Sterling girl who has been missing. John Ward of Palmyra was pulled over on Snake Meadow Hill Road last night after a state trooper reported hearing a gunshot. The officer thought it might be poachers. The officer said Ward was acting nervous and suspicious after being pulled over. When questioned, Ward reportedly said, "I've killed her." According to the police report, the officer called for backup after Ward became increasingly upset, saying repeatedly that there was a demon inside of her. Ward was taken to Sterling Police Headquarters for further questioning. Ward then confessed to the authorities that he shot and killed Amy Martin. A 17-year-old girl had been missing for 9 days after escaping a mental institution. After a breach search, police located Amy's bodies in the wood near the now abandoned Martin home. In addition to receiving a gunshot wound to the stomach, Amy showed injuries suggesting that she had been thrown out of a second-story window of the house. An officer who had helped recover the body told reporters that Amy's face had been mutilated in a very brutal manner. Ward was found dressed as a priest when he was pulled over. It is suspected that he impersonated a priest to gain his victim's trust after Catholic authorities in Rome confirmed that Ward was not an ordained minister. So basically, we shot Amy, we get arrested for it, and it seems that John here is not actually linked to the church itself. He is not ordained by them. But we see that this act itself weighs heavily on John, and he hates that he did it. He obviously goes against what he fully believes in killing someone, and this action itself leads to him becoming a wreck. This is the worst ending. It's meant to act as the worst ending because John goes against what he believes in, and it ends with the, I guess, demon kind of winning in a way, because demons kind of want humans to all be destroyed, I guess, in some way, shape or form, and he does do that. Next is the father and son ending. Basically, go to the shed where you found the key, and there's a grey figure standing there. This figure has been watching you throughout the entire chapter through windows and the sorts. But after shooting him, you return to your car and you start to drive home, with John relaxing by reading some Bible verses to just calm his nerves after committing murder.
Refuge and my fortress. My God, in him I will trust. I shall not be afraid.
But a certain white creature surprises him in the back of the car. We are then shown a letter written by Father Garcia. Esteemed Cardinal Gifford, with all due respect, you cannot grasp the importance of the work I am doing for young Michael without being present here. Michael needs my help now more than ever. In the past few weeks, I have made great progress with Michael's affliction. Nevertheless, whatever darkness is inside of him fights back with increasing ferocity. We must not let up on the fight against the enemy at such a critical time. There is another reason why I dare not to return Michael to his family, nor let them see him. The darkness inside him afflicts his soul, but it also causes a terrible strain on his body, so there may be no mistaking what I mean. I've enclosed a photograph of young Michael during one of our sessions. So, Father Garcia here is treating Michael Davies, but Michael is afflicted by some sort of darkness. Who is this thing? Well, we don't know at the moment, but spoiler alert, it is the white creature. And it seems that the church themselves wanted Michael to be returned to his family due to, I guess, a lack of progress. But Garcia here seems to be encouraged by the progress he's making. I do wonder what kind of transformation occurred to him for him to turn into this monster that kills us in the end. Next is the offering ending. Basically, shoot the fox in the ritual looking spot and then head back to your car, but unfortunately when you're trying to drive home, those who did this ritual seem a bit upset for us shooting the fox in the middle of it, and we cut to black and get a letter written by a new character, a Gary. Now I want to comment on this now. Colors in this game are used to determine and show characters' traits, followings, beliefs, or who did what. So for example, anything written in blue or that is blue is obviously associated with John. Gray, Garcia, for example. Gary is red. So anything red we can link to Gary himself. Hello, Amy. I'm sorry to hear about your parents' decision. It is hard for people to trust what they do not understand. I know that you are only 17, but you are clearly an adult and you are able to handle your own life. Do not let your mum and dad stop you from following your dreams. If there is anything I can do to help you, just let me know. We are having a get together at the clinic Saturday night, and I would love for you to stop by. We still consider you part of the team, even if your mum and dad do not. We hope to see you there, Gary. The clinic has made a reappearance now, and we know that Amy is not an adult. And when I first read this is what I thought about the sentence of Gary saying you are an adult mentally.
But you are clearly an adult. Ah, yes. Every pedophile's best excuse. You're very mature for your age.
Yeah, Gary is that kind of person. But Gary is linked to this ritual. But this note being linked to the ritual should mean it's linked to Gary, meaning that Gary is a part of the cult itself. And the cult uses the color red, and Gary's letter is written in red. So we can assume that they are linked as well. But even him trying to relate and tell Amy that she is in the right is a textbook move for cult behavior in convincing younger people to join their cause. It's a sort of brainwashing to convince them to join them and make them feel like they belong with a cult more than their own parents. Because if you can isolate someone from their parents, especially a younger person, you can convince them to do anything. Now this cult seems to be focused on the clinic itself, somewhere where Amy herself volunteered. So she wasn't hired in a way, she volunteered to help at the clinic, showing that mentally she has been controlled by this cult in some way, because she's volunteering to do it. She's going out of her way to seek out the job itself specifically. So potentially, with this clinic, there is something more sinister afoot, and it is not a good way for Amy to get her foot in the door in the nursing sort of industry or hospital industry. And maybe, this is how Amy ended up getting possessed. Next up is the hunter ending. Basically, shoot any of the deers that you can find throughout the woods, and when you try to leave in your car, deer got revenge on us.
Wait, what? What? I was joking.
You get ambushed.
What the fuck?
Unidentified body discovered near wrecked car. The site of a deadly car accident was discovered along a road near Stirling this morning, along with a body of a person who has not yet been identified. At 6 AM this morning, a resident called to report an accident along Snake Meadow Hill Road. The driver of a silver sedan had swerved off the road and struck a tree. A spokesperson for the police commented that the body appeared to have been dragged several yards from the car deeper into the woods, after having been ejected from the front windshield. It was noted that the body had been mangled beyond recognition. Investigators suspect this was probably the work of coyotes. Police also noted that parts of a cleaned white-tailed deer were found in the trunk of the car. From a white-tailed deer, a hunter typically gets 75 pounds of meat. However, it appears the victim of the accident was only able to carry 25 pounds back to the car. Right, so this hunting trip did not end well for John, with obviously him killing a thing of nature, and nature bites back and attacks him. But him taking 25 pounds of meat out of 75 pounds is very odd, but we never actually did it ourselves, so I think the deers planted it on us as sort of like a ritualistic sort of thing. It's a very interesting thing, and deers are very spiritual animals, so of course us killing a deer and not doing anything with it could be the way that nature bites back at us, and it's the spirits themselves get revenge for our discretion of just choosing violence and not getting anything out of it. So none of these endings end well for John. They either end with him being killed or being incarcerated by the police. But there is a problem with all these endings. They can't be the next endings because chapter 2 takes place very quickly after the events of chapter 1. So the only ending where John survives and doesn't get arrested is ending 5, meaning this must be the canon ending. And fittingly, it is called When Faith Endures. To get this ending, head back to the car with the gun, and then you'll be ambushed by the white monster again. Shoot it, and it freaks out a bit, and then it runs into the road.
I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress. My God
Entering the car and driving home, it fades to black and we get a report about the chupacabra. Police animal experts investigate chupacabra remains found near Sterling. Sterling PD is enlisting the help of local animal experts from the University of Connecticut after the remains of an unidentified animal were found near Sterling. The remains of the animal, which some residents are calling the chupacabra, were discovered on Snake Meadow Hill Road by a motorist yesterday. The animal had apparently been struck by a vehicle and parts of its carcass were scattered across the road. Police say they initially investigated the gruesome scene because the motorist who discovered the remains had told them they appeared to be of a person. After arriving at the scene, police concluded that the remains were some kind of animal. As a matter of public safety, we want to be sure about what exactly we're dealing with here, said a Sterling police spokesperson. This is clearly not a deer or a coyote. If it's a mountain lion or an exotic pet that escaped from its owners, or an animal with rabies, we need to know about it. Animal experts attached to the investigation would not speculate on what kind of animal had been found, although they commented that the animal was hairless, anemic, and apparently suffered from the rickets, a vitamin D deficiency that appears in animal and children who have not received enough sunlight. Interestingly, this creature had rickets, which basically is the bowing of bones, which explains its weird posture, and this is due to the lack of vitamin D. But the police were sure that it was not a person, but some kind of animal, be it a hairless mountain lion or a new exotic pet that no one knows about. I mean, that thing was speaking, but it was squished, so who knows? They might be clueless, or they might be covering it up for the CIA because of this monster-looking thing. We don't know. But again, it was squished, so potentially they just don't know. But this is the ending with Michael here dying to being crushed by a big old lorry. And obviously it is the best ending in general, with John getting away and not dying, but he does do some big mistakes and some big events did take place. So let's break down chapter 1 real quick, simply. First of all, John, haunted by the events from a year back which saw his mentor killed and him sent to a psychiatric ward, he escaped or was let out, and a year later the girl also escaped the psychiatric ward as well that they were both being held in. This girl escaping was then brought to the attention of John, and this led him to then return to the Martin residence to finish what he started. Along the way he met some interesting creatures and sights, and then entering the house got heated during the exorcism with the girl diving out the window and into the woods. John found a gun, now terrified runs back to his car, but is ambushed by the white gangly creature that has chased him throughout the woods. He shoots it gets crushed by a lorry, but then he goes to his car and drives off, leaving Amy in the woods, still possessed and heavily injured. And most importantly, John did not finish what he started a year ago, and this action in itself will haunt John for the rest of the game. Okay, so that's chapter 1 wrapped up in a nice little bow. It's a good little chapter and it's a great introduction to faith. It obviously shows John questioning his faith and his faith being very heavily tested with him going to a psychiatric ward and being told what happened was not real. But it seems that John still has his faith and does believe what he saw was the work of the devil itself, or the devils themselves, as we'll find out in the future. So let's move on to Chapter 2 Prologue. Now, interestingly enough, Chapter 2 got a prologue part as a demo. Now, I wouldn't talk about this, but the prologue actually has some big story details inside of it. So let's just dive into it quickly so we just sort of get it out of the way. We spawn in with John standing in front of his crashed car, and in the next screen over we can find a dead guy in another car, obviously indicating that we were in a collision with this person. Leaving the screen, the guy leaves a blood trail into the cornfield coming out of his car, so we follow it heading north into the cornfield, and we can see the guy running off northwards, and a scarecrow sits in the center of the cornfield. Continuing north, we find a dead dog. Exercising the dog, we get a note after defeating the cornfield maze demon. About a week ago, we started hearing those awful noises coming from the adjacent fields. After 3 nights, the children were getting pretty scared. I told them it was just coyotes. That 3rd night, the noises seemed closer than ever. The dogs were panicking. I could hardly approach them. Then Greta, the last of that old line brought over by the German missionaries, broke loose and tore off into the corn. We all listened, too scared to go after her, as her barks faded away into the distance. After that, we had 2 nights of silence, besides the endless whispering of the wind blowing through the crops. But then this morning I stepped outside to see this fresh horror left at the edge of the field. There's something out there. So it seems like there is something, some being in the cornfields attacking the people living in the church and just being a general nuisance. Maybe the demon is trying to touch us up as well as we're walking through, and it caused the death of old Greta here, and also you can sort of fight demons in the cornfields. Walking further north, we find a statue with 6 graves around it. Exercising the statue, it drops another note. What more more could I have done? I warned them not to go into the fields. I warned them against straying too far from the sanctuary. Should I have just shut them in their quarters and nailed boards over their doors? Now I am digging 6 graves here in the shadow of the church. 6 little graves, forever looking to St. William. Some of the boxes are empty. The scattered remain. We couldn't fill them all. But I know they're all gone. I know their souls were taken by that thing in the field. I will finish my gruesome work and then renounce the ministry. I don't want to see anyone from the sanctuary ever again. Not even that girl who stayed inside the house last night. I don't believe in the devil anymore. Whatever did this is much, much worse. So the statue is of St. William, the patron saint of adopted children, a key aspect to this story here. So this statue and this indicates what lies within the graves themselves. 6 children as 6 little graves, but something worse than the devil itself killed the children, shredding them so much that they couldn't fill the 6 coffins they made for them, displaying that some parts of these children were completely lost. Now the writer of this note also states that after they've done this, their work is completely done with the church itself. They will renounce the ministry as they have lost their faith completely. Whatever was here was truly evil, so evil they could not understand why God would even allow something like this to exist. It changed the way that they viewed the world, questioning everything now and completely losing their faith in God themselves. But whatever wanders into these fields seems to end up dead. So are we going to die as well, wandering around in these fields? Let's just keep heading north. Eventually we will arrive at a dilapidated church. Entering the church, we find it has been abandoned for a long time with only a note left on the floor. We have a new volunteer to look after the children and take care of things around the sanctuary. Sister Bell. She came highly recommended by the main office in Hartford. Bringing her in marks the completion of staffing the church after all these years. The church has been very careful about letting out what happened to those children. As far as I can tell, I'm the only one left who knows about it. Soon I'll be gone and the sanctuary will go back into service, having finally left those dark times behind. We received clearance to move in a new group of children, 3 next week and another 3 sometime next month. So the church is hiding what happened to these 6 children, the 6 children that were lost in the cornfield and were murdered, but they're also allowing a new group of people to come in, mainly new workers and new children themselves, showing that the orphanage does keep sort of children moving around constantly, and these children being lost, they could just sort of sweep it under the rug because no one truly knows the children living here because they're probably isolated from the rest of society, and obviously they're orphans. They don't have parents, they don't have friends outside of the church probably, so it is quite a sad existence. But along with these children, a new worker, Sister Bell, an interesting character who we'll learn a lot more about. Now dark times often repeat themselves if nothing is done to change it, and it seems that no one is doing anything to try to snuff out the evil that is haunting this place. So them not doing anything about it and just leaving it, it is obviously going to repeat again. Heading to the room on the left, we find a red chalice, and exercising it, we get into a bit of a scrap, but using the power of God himself, we defeat the spawn of hell, and we get yet another note, which is a report on Sister Bell herself. Sister Bell seems like a naturally cheery person, but when the new children arrived, she became positively elated. She doles over them constantly, takes them on walks, and tells them stories long into the night. I've seen her engaging in strange behavior. We don't teach the children much dancing or singing besides what is found in the hymns, but I've seen the children dancing around Sister Bell in a circle from time to time. While they dance, she stands still and looks up at the sky as if listening to something. On another occasion, I found all 6 children standing in a line just outside the cornfield, where Sister Bell was standing and talking to them. These odd games don't bother me too much since she's good with the children. Her cleaning is excellent too. As soon as she arrived, she seemed to just instantly know her way around. So it seems that Sister Bell is popular with the children, and she seems to be a very good worker at cleaning and caring and just everything in general. She seems very good at her job, but there is something odd about her, and mainly it's her more weird behaviors around the cornfield, staring up at the sky, teaching them strange dancing and singing, which obviously satanic panic in the 80s, this would be very much it when you're teaching them different kinds of music and stuff like that. But she seemed to instantly know her way around the church when she arrived there. This obviously is meant to show that she was very familiar. Maybe she's worked in a church similar, of course, but it does seem that she knows this place, and maybe she's been here before. We don't know. She might have just been a regular person that attended this church every so often, but it's worded a bit more ominously in my opinion. It seems that she shouldn't really understand the surroundings as well as she does. Returning back to the main room and walking north, we find an entrance to another room, being blocked by a sill and a note on the floor. They couldn't have given me a worse last case before retirement. Old Catholic church out in the middle of nowhere, 1 missing woman, 4 missing kids, and 1 deceased old nun. The brothers and sisters, or whatever the hell the people that work here call themselves, are all terrified and worse, superstitious. All except Father Clark, who runs the place. Him and I drive along the farm roads at night, looking for signs of missing missing people, and he makes for pretty good company. There are 2 kids left. Say they were asleep the night the 4 went missing. They also claim that the woman, Miriam Bell, isn't actually gone. When I ask where she is, they look at each other and then back at me and then tell me to ask her myself. So this is an investigator report by a detective, and now things have gone real bad. So 1 missing woman, which seems to be Miriam Bell, 4 missing kids, which are the orphans, probably the 6 that were brought in, and a dead nun, and it has left everyone terrified and, as he states, something worse, superstitious. Obviously they're Christians and Catholics or whatever, so obviously they're going to think that the worst has happened and potentially it's the work of the devil. Again, satanic panic in the 80s. But only 2 kids were left out of the 6 that were brought in, and these 2 kids claim that Belle isn't actually gone. She's still here, and the detective could ask her himself. Very ominous and very like Omen sort of styled sort of characters, these just creepy children. Heading right, a shadowy figure ducks behind some debris, and exercising the St. Mary painting and trying to leave the room, a cultist ambushes us. Dealing with the cultist and heading back to the sill, a note appears again on the floor. This morning we found these very odd objects around the church. The best way I could describe them would be large life-size dolls made of sticks and dead branches. Someone must have placed them there while we were sleeping. Hoodlums? Maybe. Or a group of weirdos. The twins seem fixated on these dolls. They stare out the window at them all day. I even heard them shout that they saw Miriam standing around them, but when I looked there was nobody there. Maybe it's the strange behaviour of the twins, or the hours of driving these farm roads at night, but this place is getting to me. I keep having the same nightmare where I'm standing outside the church looking out into the fields. I can see people looking back at me through the rows of corn. Their bodies are painted red. This is another note again from the detective, with him finding life-size dolls made out of sticks and dead trees. Now at first I thought these were scarecrows, made out of sticks, dead branches, whatever, look like people, but I don't think they're actually talking about scarecrows. They're obviously trying to talk about something more sinister. When they say life-size dolls, I think they mean full-on dolls, like legs, arms, hands, everything. But the twins seem very fixated on these dolls themselves, and they stare at them all day. And they told the detective that they saw Miriam around these dolls, so obviously there is something about these dolls. And also, he is seeing people in his dreams who are painted red. Red is obviously associated with the cult, so again, he is being messed around with by the cult most likely, and this seems to be the work of the cult themselves. Heading left in the church, now we find a confessional booth, and the shadowy figure from earlier is now ducking behind the window, and a purple skull on the table. Now I stated earlier that colours are used to symbolise character associations with each other. For example, anything red is on the side of the cult, and anything blue is with John and the holy side of everything. But purple is a very unique colour. Now while purple has a lot of symbolism behind it, I think it's more used due to it being a colour you get when you mix red and blue. If blue represents the side of God and the Holy Church, then red would be the side of the devil and the cult. So purple could be a person who is influenced by both sides and is not belonging to one and can go either way. This is the same way Amy was. Amy would fit into this, being a girl who grew up in a religious household, but she was influenced by another character when she joined the clinic, changing her, and now she is more of a purple character. She's not on either side, she's sort of a bit of both. And the only other characters that we've seen that are purple are the 2 twins, but this skull is purple as well. So why is it purple? Well, it could belong to someone who was influenced by both sides, showing that the characters in this game are not the first people to be corrupted from God's grace and towards the devil, or it's just purple to make it stand out more from the background, which is probably more likely. Exercising it, another cultist jumps out, so we deal with them, and then heading back to the sill, another note appears. I should have known this place was no good. The signs were all around me. The disappearances, the creepy twins, the life-size stick dolls, 4 of them. Around 2 in the morning, we woke up to the sound of an old woman's cackle coming from the hallways outside the twins' room. I know this sounds crazy, but when I got to the hallway, laughing was coming from a painting of the Virgin Mary. We thought we had lost our minds. Just then we heard a loud noise coming from the chapel. We got there just in time to see Miriam dragging the twins downstairs, leading to the basement. I drew my service weapon, but was stopped by Father Clark. He said something about God's work and headed down the stairs, sealing the opening to the stairs behind him. The stairs don't seem to open from this side. All I can do is wait. I can't describe the noises I heard down there, but one thing is certain: the devil is real. To anyone reading this, please, for the love of God, don't go down into the basement. So the detective here has finally encountered Sister Belle, and he pieces the puzzle together. It's all falling in place for him. The life-size dolls outside, there are 4 of them, the missing children. Miriam has taken the twins. She's very clearly trying to sacrifice these children and store their souls in these dolls. There being 4 of them, 4 dead children, and she's now trying to complete her job taking the remaining 2, the 2 twins. And obviously, twins, you then think of the twins in the first chapter, Jason and Nate. And just like any good American cop, he draws his weapon, but he is stopped by Father Clark, and Father Clark tells him that he needs to do God's work, and he goes into the basement alone. And this kind of sort of links into the way that potentially that using regular weapons that man has created, like guns and the swords, might not have an effect on these demons. We haven't seen them be used yet,
yet. We will see them get used eventually, but maybe they just don't have an effect on people in the way that people think they would. The seal to the basement can now be broken by exercising one last thing, which is at the front of the church. John heading down into the basement, it is pitch black with nothing being visible, but grabbing a flashlight, we can make our way through the darkness, and in the center of the room, a demon is standing there, so we fight a holy battle against it. Now, something I haven't commented on yet is in the basement we see this figure object again, and we saw these 4 figure objects by the graves. These are meant to be the straw dolls that have been mentioned in the notes a couple times. Well, I think they are. Now, we know the 4 in the fields are meant to be the children that were taken by Miriam Bell, but who is the one in the basement? From all we know that the twins did survive, and there's only one doll here. So did only one twin die? Well, no. I think this doll belongs to Father Croc. It seems to me when the cult or people associated with whatever the cult worship sacrifice someone, they turn it into these straw dolls to basically hold their souls, probably to be then used in what I'm going to talk about now when we proceed further. Walking back up, we can grab the final note here. Here is the ritual of the door to hell. Let no brother or sister utter it. He that is a master of spirits. Let 3 spirits that follow the dragon be put into the effigy of the accursed. Only then can it be purified. You will know it is time when its eyes glow red. To enter the unseen world, destroy the purified effigy with fire. Then shall the door to hell be open. So it's a ritual to open the gates to hell, and it is part of one of the 2 endings. But interestingly, it says you need 3 spirits. So if 6 children were wanted by Miriam to do this ritual, that is obviously indicating to us that she is trying to create 2 uses of this spell, basically. You use 3, you open it for a bit, and it allows probably 1 person to come through. You use 6, you get 2 openings, potentially meaning 2 big demons that could come through. Now, a question I was actually asking myself while playing this game was, why would Miriam want the twins specifically? It says that you need 3 souls to do this spell or ritual, whatever it is. So why would she want the twins? The twins obviously 2 souls, but she already has 5 dolls. She has the 4 children, and in the basement, which we assume is Father Clark. So why does she want the twins? It's because of the line, let 3 spirits that follow the dragon be put into the effigy of the accursed. The dragon in the Bible, specifically Revelations, is used to refer to Satan himself. So someone that follows the dragon is a follower of Satan. Obviously, Father Clark does not follow Satan. He is a man of Jesus Christ and the Lord himself. He is a man of true faith. So why children though? Well, as I stated earlier, children are very easily to influence, specifically young orphan children. Nothing wrong with being an orphan, obviously, but you don't have someone above you in life that can stop this influencing force from influencing you. Miriam Bell obviously was very close to the children, and she would be the first person that would be able to influence them very quickly. And by the weird rituals and dancing she was doing, we can assume that she was slowly influencing them to the side of the dragon himself, or Satan himself. This would make them prime souls to give to the effigy to do these spells, and explains why she wants the children so badly, and why she came back for the twins. Because if she could get any Dick, Andy, or Stacy, she would just do that. She would take the other nuns she killed. But because they're people of faith and they believe in God and are on the side of God, they cannot be used for this ritual. It literally states that let no brother or sister utter it. You cannot let anyone of faith know of this ritual. But enough of that. So now with this, we obviously get on to the endings now. So let's talk about the endings for the prologue. So the prologue has 2 endings. First is the Here I Am ending. Basically, after defeating the basement demon, we'll pack up stairs and head to the main part of the church. And the 2 purple children, the twins, are standing in the middle of a room. Approaching them, and that ends the prologue, fading us into chapter 2. But before that, the other ending. After beating the demon in the basement, follow the instructions on the note. We go back to the scarecrow, and satanic symbols have spawned around it, and a large hole in its face. Exercise it, then walk back to your car, which is now set on fire, set yourself on fire, run back to the scarecrow like hell, and then set the scarecrow alight. John doesn't die, he somehow passes the fire on to just the scarecrow, and a bunch of purple children emerge from the cornfield. Now become a spider thing. None? So we get transported to the unseen world and we see the real Miriam Bell. This is a really good ending and obviously tells us a lot. The prologue, while not answering any key questions, obviously, it is here to plant some key story points that will be answered in chapter 2 itself and chapter 3 later on. The main story points that are planted in chapter 2 prologue are the many children, Miriam Bell, and the church on Snake Meadow Hill. These are key points that we need to remember now in the next coming chapters. But now with the prologue finished, let's actually get into chapter 2, The Never-Ending Nightmares. We open now playing as a grey character, or Father Garcia, yes, the random guy we shot earlier in chapter 1, and he is in an apartment. Heading into the kitchen, we can find a few photographs scattered about, each labelled day 1, 2 weeks, and 3 months. And that thing is the rake thing that we saw in chapter 1. And yes, we did kill it, meaning this essentially takes place in the past. So it's obviously telling us that it used to be a normal person and it somehow became whatever it is now. Heading down to the basement. What? Why is he tied up on the bed? We find it. Yeah, on the bed is the monster, and Garcia asks Michael how he is doing. So this thing is Michael Davies, with the demon, I guess, claiming him and turning him into whatever monster he is. The monster or demon thing tells Garcia that his parents will kill him if they find out what he did to him. As Garcia starts the exorcism, Michael breaks free, cuts the lights, and bolts out, trying to escape, and we give chase to him, and into the hallway. Brother needed some munch. He could have just gone in the fridge. And this scene here to me puts to bed the doubt about John's mental state, because Michael either has some serious problems with him mentally and physically, and he isn't getting the proper care he needs, or he is actually possessed, and John was right to attack him when trying to escape. It also means the thing with Amy was also true. What we saw was real, and not something that he made up. It seems that John is of sane mind, because this is something that actually happened, and Father Garcia seems pretty well, mentally there. What the fuck? You run like that. Fading out, we now return to John at 2 in the morning, and he's in the middle of the woods in 5 Pebbles. Walking past a nice Christmas tree. We approach the Gollop Cemetery. Just outside the tomb is another note written by Gary, as it is written in red, and it is labelled with Gary's name at the end of it. And it states, "Dearest disciple, verily, not everyone who says Lucifer, Lucifer, shall inherit his kingdom. You must first conjure his demon. You must then serve his demon. You must then walk among the children of men as his demon. Thus shall you receive the blessing of the unspeakable. Return to the saved family tomb whenever you are in need of rest." So this is obviously stating something that people who are in the cult need to follow in order to achieve the highest level what they're seeking, which is being with Lucifer, being on that level with him and being seen as worthy to join Lucifer. Entering the tomb, we can find 3 red individuals on the bench, 3 thralls or low-ranking members of the cult, seemingly playing a bigger role in what is happening to John at the moment. At the end of the tomb is a mirror. Spirits then exit the thrall's body, and we now have to hunt down the 3 demons that just left them to obtain a key to proceed further in the chapter. First up, walking right and exercising a purple skull, a gate opens. We can now also exercise a specific gravestone to obtain an obituary note, which details the deaths of both Cindy and Martin, the 2 parents of Amy. It is with great sadness that the Sterling community announces the passing of Cindy Marie Martin, 38, and Robert Kimball Martin, 40, devoted husband and wife and beloved parents. Their lives tragically came to an end on September 21st due to an accident in their home. Bob was a training advisor for the United States Navy, and Cindy was a CPA, and more recently, a stay-at-home mother. They were married March 12, 1969 in Voluntown, though not particularly religious. They taught their children to be kind, generous, and involved in the community. A public closed casket memorial will be held at Tillinghast Funeral Home at 10 a.m. Thursday. Burial services will proceed shortly after. Bob and Cindy are survived by their daughter, Amy, and twin boys, Nate and Jason. So we do get the names of the parents now. We did know Bob's name, but we get their full names now. And interestingly, it states that they're not particularly religious, which, yes, their house wasn't had religious stuff all over the place, and they weren't seemingly super religious, but Bob was a missionary. He did missionary work, and they thought that their daughter was possessed. Again, it is the satanic panic, but you wouldn't go to possession straight away if you're not religious in some way, shape, or form, which I find this is a bit of an odd thing that's a bit contradictory. So maybe they just got influenced by the satanic panic at the time and just believed she was possessed, but again, he's a missionary, so it's just a bit contradicting in ways. But we do see that the 2 boys, Nate and Jason, did survive the exorcism, them. But where are they now then? That is a question that has not been answered and we won't find out. Walking through the gate, we are now in a fight with another demon, more specifically the umbilical cord demon. Exercising the demon, it disappears screaming violator and leaves some blood and a note. Nobody was thrilled when I got pregnant, not even a little happy. Even my doctor seemed to be judging me. Each time I'd leave the doctor's office, I'd see this strange woman across the street. All she'd do is stare at me and smile. No words, just a big, warm smile. Somehow it made those visits a little more bearable. After I lost the baby, I saw her again across the street from the doctor's. Her smile was as big as ever, but somehow not as warm and friendly as I remember. Yesterday I was walking and was shocked to see the woman standing in the middle of the path. Now she was pregnant. She beckoned towards me. I followed her off the path into the woods. That's when I met Gary. The note details a woman who got pregnant and she was judged heavily in the community for it. My guess, she had it out of wedlock, but each time she went to the doctor's office, she saw a strange and peculiar woman across the road, just smiling at her. One day, she lost her baby, and this day, she spotted the woman, but she was still smiling, but not in a friendly manner, more conniving, more evil. And a few days later, or yesterday in the note, she met the woman again, and she was pregnant somehow. And the woman then led her into the woods, and she met Gary. Gary is seemingly linked to the cult in a way, and he seemingly is a big influential figure. Returning to the tomb, one of the thralls is missing, the woman who is called Sandra. Okay, so heading to the left and fight another demon. Beating it, it drops yet another note. Losing Grandpa was the hardest thing I ever experienced. We were really close. I cried about it for weeks. Then my stepmom introduced me to some of her friends. They asked me, would you like to see your grandfather again? I missed him so much. I was willing to try anything. That night, my stepmom drove me to one of her friends' house. They took me down to the basement. I saw my grandfather in there, only it wasn't actually him. When I tried to run, they closed the basement door and locked me in. I can't remember much else from that night. My stepmom's friends are always coming by the house now. They tell me I have a debt to pay. They say they have work for me to do. This details a child or person's experience of losing a loved family member and being taken advantage of by older individuals who seem to have a sick sense of humor. But seemingly, interestingly, these friends are actually a part of the cult. They seem to have done something to bring back his grandfather, and it seemed that they were trying to indoctrinate him, or what they were actually trying to do, force him by blackmailing him into doing it, pressuring him, saying that he has a debt to pay. So to me, these notes are reading as people who were basically very vulnerable at one point, and the cult took advantage of that and brought them into the cult. We had a woman who just lost her child and a young person who lost a very valuable member to them in their family, their grandfather. Okay, so heading up and doing the puzzle in the north part now, which took me way too long to figure out, and finally fighting the demon, it spews out, I will see thee, and drops yet another note. I've been freed, no more overbearing, father turned violent alcoholic. No more hiding my bruises and cuts. No more pills and needles. No more getting laughed at and kicked around. They'll never laugh at me again. By day my body withers away, but by night my mind explores forbidden worlds of power and knowledge, guided by beings of pure darkness. I have been trusted with the secret knowledge of the demon's seal. I have learned the correct conjuring sign, drawing the inverted star along the rocks arranged in 5, first at the top left point and then down. I will lure them into the woods, then I will show them my power. This details a boy's experience who was not given an easy life. A violent alcoholic father, and he got bullied seemingly. But he has now gotten to the point where he is doing satanic and demonology, and he is trying to lure people into the woods to show him, in his words, his power guided by forces of evil. Seemingly a person on the side of evil, and if you're on the side of evil in this game, you're probably part of the cult. So this is probably another person who was freed because the cult did something for him. No more overbearing father turned violent alcoholic. They probably killed him or sacrificed his father, and he now feels indebted to them. Now in the other note it did state that Gary would lure people into the woods, so is this Gary? No, it's one of the people in the tomb earlier, it's one of the thralls. But with all 3 demons defeated, all the thralls disappear from the tomb and we can now approach the mirror. Oh. John now having a bleeding eye, but the key is on the ground, so we can retrieve it and then head forward, unlocking the locked gate, and the rest of the area now lights up for us. John's bleeding seemingly somehow stops. Right, walking some more, we find the church and a note. She guards the door to underground purgatory. I have not seen her. Children fear her. This is clearly talking about Miriam herself, and heading into the church, we have a bit more to do. Heading left, we find the confessional booth again, with John confessing his sins of not being able to save Amy and finish the exorcism twice. The person on the other side says God will forgive him if he brings the child to him. A bit ominous and very clearly not correct, because that is not what a church would probably want. But after this, John will be behind the booth itself and in the room with 2 sealed doors and a little note on the floor. Day 1 of our paranormal investigation into the old Snake Meadow Hill church. We've got 3 cameras, a box of tapes, and enough beer and beef jerky to last us a week. On our way in, we asked some of the locals about the church. It was mostly stories we had heard before, evil spirits dragging children into the cornfield and secret tunnels under the chapel. But there was this spindly lady game that we hadn't haven't heard of yet. Apparently it has to do with summoning the spirit of a woman who used to take care of the orphans back in the 50s. There was even an old rhyme they told us about. Walk the church from room to room. Maybe you will see her. She will move when you do, but never try to trick her. Awesome. We're going to try the game tonight as soon as we get settled in. Within the note, it details a report or a diary entry from a couple of people who seem to be ghost or paranormal hunters, having come to church in order to hunt the spindly lady, with them outlining how to do it. Now, the spindly lady is Miriam, and the spindly lady is a boss fight here. Basically, move between the rooms until you find the one with only one candle lit, and she's in this room. Flash your crucifix around a bit and you'll basically encounter her and you fight her. Banishing her, a passageway to the basement in the chapel is now unlocked, allowing us to go down into the basement, the place the investigator told us not to go in the prologue. Heading down, we'd find a memoir from Father Clark. This is my final memoir, hastily scribbled on a page of the good book. I now descend the staircase, knowing full well that she waits for me ahead. Checking my old watch has revealed something quite astonishing. Time doesn't change down here, as we know it on the surface. Even now the hands don't move past 2 o'clock. God's work be done. I have been to where only the faintest light shines, and protect from things unspeakable. God help me, Father Clark, a foolish old man, going mad in this dark prison, ears bleeding from the screams of a demon. So of course this shows Father Clark's thoughts when he went down into the basement and kind of what happened to him when he encountered Miriam Bell. Interestingly, the clock doesn't move past 2 AM, the time which we opened on with John. Late times like this in real life, mainly after 12 AM to around 4 AM, are often associated with witches and the supernatural and demons. Of course, the famous one is 3 AM, the one that everyone seems to know about. It is the big witching hour, but the witching hours are multiple hours. The witching hours are associated to be between either 12 AM and 3 AM or 3 to 4, depending on who you ask. Me, I've always seen it as 1 AM to 4 AM. That's always been the witching hours to me, and that's kind of what I was told when I was younger. But 2 AM and 3 AM are the times most associated with the witching hours themselves. But again, it depends who you ask, but to me, yeah, 2 AM is very much a witching hour or a hour of evil. In the next room, a puzzle which can be solved with the demonic clock note which we can find in the other room, and solving it we can move on into the next room with the Mother of Demons scrawled across the wall and 6 stick dolls on the floor. 6 children, Mother of Demons. I wonder who that could be. Miriam Bell? Probably. Now John walks up the staircase and into the outside into the woods, and we are unable to go backwards now. Heading forward, we find some interesting sights and a newspaper article inside a pentagram. 3 murdered in latest wave of ritualistic killings. Sterling, Connecticut. The bodies of 3 young people were discovered in the woods outside of Sterling last night, in what authorities are calling a ritualistic murder. Sandra Atwood, Angel Nogales, and Troy Ingles are the names of the unfortunate victims who were apparently stabbed multiple times and beheaded before being killed in a paganistic ritual, Pandemonium Regant. 2 of the victims' bodies were also partially burned, although authorities would not specify who. The bodies were found several miles from Golub Cemetery, where the residents reported a tomb had been desecrated. They also found trails of blood leading off into the woods. Investigators would not comment on whether or not these 2 incidents could be related. The arrangement of the bodies in a ritualistic pattern, as well as the writing of certain symbols in blood, matches the style of several murders that occurred in Sterling area since 1986. The killings may be connected to last week's brutal slaying of Amy Martin, a 17-year-old girl by John Ward. Ward had impersonated a priest to gain Amy's trust before luring her into the woods and killing her. Investigators are asking to report any suspicious activities to the police. Authorities are urging the people of Sterling to not mourn the loss of Atwood Nogales. Basically, this note begins to ramble. It just goes on and on and on. It outlines 3 murders which seem to be part of a ritual, and these 3 victims were the 3 thralls that we saw earlier in the tomb: Sandra, Troy, and Angel. Now, of course, this could have taken place later, but how is the newspaper here? We just saw them. It's not making a lot of sense in general, and also, it says that John killed Amy and was incarcerated for it, but we didn't. If the canon ending we're following, the one where he kills Michael, this doesn't make a lot of sense to occur, as John's not in custody, he's a free man, so it wouldn't make a lot of sense for them to know John killed Amy. The latter part of this entire article is when you should start doubting what is happening. As I stated, it doesn't seem to make much sense, so maybe John is indeed having delusions again, tying back into the psychiatric stay and the reports we found in chapter 1 from his doctor. And it also states we can't kill Amy, so did we kill her or did we not kill her? It's such a cool way to make you question your own player character, and I love it. It's done so well here. But it also states John killed the 3 people, so what is happening? Is someone playing with John? More specifically, someone or something that views itself as God? Closing the article. What? A little creature. Now John has turned into a creature, a stick doll, and we crawl across the woods and to an underpass. Going under, we turn back to normal and we head into the sewer tunnel called the Candy Tunnel. Maybe we'll meet Tony Todd here. Inside we see clear evidence of people using drugs, substances, alcohol, the whole 9 yards, and skeletons. Some pretty hard stuff they're using here. Exercising the skeleton, we get a newspaper article outlining an event with 2 bodies being discovered at the entrance of the tunnel about a shootout between the police and a Joe Bauman, or the candy store killer. Multiple officers wounded, found dead in sewer tunnel shootout. Law enforcement officials are reporting multiple officers down, including one deputy who was fatally wounded after an exchange of gunfire in the sewer tunnels near Snake Meadow Hill Road, also known as Candy Tunnel. Witnesses say they heard these shots approximately 10 minutes after the police raided the tunnels, where suspected murderer John Bowman, also known as the candy store killer, was alleged to be hiding. At this time, it is not known how many officers have been wounded, although it has been confirmed that one officer has been killed. Officials are not saying if Bauman was wounded in the exchange, and efforts are being made to recover the casualties from the tunnel. 2 more dead bodies discovered outside Candy Tunnel near Sterling. 2 more bodies have been recovered from the drainage ditch under Snake Meadow Hill Road outside Sterling. The notorious Candy Tunnel, known in the area, home to addicts, gangs, runaways, and the indigent, has been made the site of several grisly discoveries over the past 3 months. Since May, 5 bodies have been recovered from the drainage ditch leading to the tunnels. Authorities are being pressured by concerned citizens to search the tunnels amid fears of a possible connection to Joe Bauman, also known as the Candy Store Killer, who has claimed 8 victims in Connecticut and Rhode Island over the past year. Sounds like fun. Exploring more, we eventually come across a new demon. I'm not gonna touch anything. I'm not gonna touch it. This one we fight by not moving. And exploring deeper in the pipes, we can find a note. This is as far as I'll go to hide my stash. Nobody goes past the first pipe. Nobody except those strange people with their bodies painted red and their eyes like animals. Twice a month they come and pass right through into the deeper tunnels. Sometimes I can hear them yelling or chanting. Sometimes I hear something like an old woman laughing. Sometimes I hear things that aren't even human. Whatever they are, they sound really, really big. An old woman laughing? I wonder who that would be. And chanting? I wonder if it's cold. It is the cold, of course. They're painted red, they have symbols all over their bodies, animal-like eyes, old woman laughing, Miriam Bell, whoopee. So of course it seems that they're playing a role here, and potentially they're the ones actually killing the people who are turning up dead in the drainage ditch for their general sacrificial rituals. Going deeper, we get another flashlight, and we are confronted by the basement demon. It has a high amount of health, but we can very easily banish it. Continuing on, we see a member of the cult running away, and if he comes back at us and gets a hold of us, he does what every Englishman does on a Thursday afternoon. We then fade to a new location, a tunnel system that looks too clean to be the candy tunnels themselves, and we find some hints about enemies we are going to face. They hate the light, and yes, the next 3 cultists we find and engaged by do not like the light itself, with them being repelled by it. Exercising the portrait on the wall, Nate and Jason seem to spawn in the room but disappear. The exorcism of the painting has opened the door to the next room, allowing us to move on and grab a key to open a door in the first room. Walking north past this doorway, now you can proceed. A woman in a nun attire walks towards us, trying to grab John, but suddenly a grey man walks towards John holding a brown crucifix. This man just saved John from what seemingly was Miriam Bell. This is Father Garcia, and the two have now finally met. But the pair move into the next room and now have to fight the nun. The nun is obviously Sister Bell, or Miriam Bell, and you and Garcia are going to banish this foul witch. The boss fight wise, it is actually pretty good. In Chapter 2, the boss fights are greatly improved in my opinion from Chapter 1, and they actually have some fun game mechanics in place, using the very simple game system they have. And she becomes, oh shit, she became a damn box art. But John jolts up in bed, heavily breathing, revealing that parts within Chapter 2, with John specifically, were all but a dream, explaining the weird things that we were seeing and the conflicting evidence that we were getting from the articles we were picking up. But now we get on to the endings. There are 3 endings in Chapter 2, so let's go over them real quick, as they don't really matter that much. They do a bit, but it's a dream, so it doesn't really matter. First up is the Go Forth with Face ending. This ending is achieved by defeating Sister Bell and keeping Father Garcia alive, and not performing any of the conditions needed for ending 3. Waking up, John reads a letter sent to him by Father Garcia. John, we don't have much time. The profane Sabbath is upon us. If they find Nate and Jason, they will perform the ritual on them to call forth a demon of unspeakable power. The name of the demon is Malthus. I am in the process of discovering their whereabouts. I will contact you again soon. We must not let them do to the boys what they did to Amy. Father Garcia. In it, the name of a demon, Malthus, a greater demonic being who serves as one of the presidents of hell, and he is the second big honcho of hell, just behind Satan himself. And Malthus accepts any sacrifice given to him, but he often plays tricks on the person who did said sacrifice to him, often not giving them exactly what they desire. John, exhausted, but he knows that he has a job to do, gets up and leaves.
My nightmares are getting worse. Ever since I left that house, I am haunted by visions of demons. I finished my work with Amy, but now the boys are in danger. This time I must not fail. Malthus must be stopped. As the profane Sabbath draws closer, the workers of darkness grow stronger. This will be my greatest test of faith yet. God have mercy on my soul.
This is the canonical ending for Chapter 2, as it tells us about Malthus and the Great Sabbath, but the next ending has a slight difference to it. Ending 2 has Father Garcia killed, or if you perform one or two of the conditions for the third ending. Waking up, John reads another letter from Garcia, but it's a bit different. John, it's not too late. Your soul can still be saved. All is not lost. Please wait for my next letter. For now, I have many questions that need answering. In the meantime, be careful. They are watching you. Father Garcia. Garcia knows that John is not fully faithful. He knows that his faith is being tested and he's being pushed to the way of the cult. The act of him performing any of the conditions says so, or him believing or dreaming that Garcia dies does show that he believes that the side of God will lose to the side of evil. But it does show that Garcia is willing to help John recover his faith and be strong again and be a warrior of God. And the rest of the ending, John just drives off again. And the last ending. This is the initiation ending, which requires you to do a couple things. Make a blood pentagram in the first 5 rocks you spawn on, take one of the purple children from the field and take them to the confessional booth to be taken away by the long arm that comes out. It took me way too long to figure out how this fucker spawned, by the way. And when you become a creature, kill these 2 people on the overpass by going back and then looping round to get onto the overpass. With these 3 steps complete, just complete the chapter as normal, and now a new note is accessible in the area just before the Miriam boss fight. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. We shall visit thee soon. A bit ominous, but we seemingly have played into someone's plan. After beating Miriam, we wake up, but there is no letter from Garcia, but a patient release form from Dr. Spinell, dated October 31st, 1986. Release form, subject John Thomas Ward, DOR 31st October 1986. This form certifies that the subject is hereby released from my care after having completed their required counselling and treatment to my satisfaction, with confidence that they are ready to resume their normal daily activities as a mentally stable member of society. Dr. James Spinell, PhD. Existing conditions, mild anxiety, acute coulrophobia. Interestingly, he is afraid of clowns and has mild anxiety. Clowns were on that birthday party invite, so again, maybe this ties into him having a mental break when he saw this invite in the woods, or he just saw clowns in general when they went into the house and he just killed everyone. But again, that's me being a bit facetious and trying to create a narrative that isn't fully concrete and definitely has holes in it, but both sides of this narrative do have holes in it. But now we leave through the back door and fades into... Oh. That is an interesting beast. Well, the box art thing that Miriam became seemingly took John, making this the worst possible ending, and if John does get possessed, it means he's fully lost his faith. As I said earlier, someone who has faith in God themselves cannot be possessed by evil. Alright, that was a woozy. Chapter 2 is very much to show us what John feels, a tremendous amount of guilt for the actions that he committed, mainly to do with Amy, but also gives us insight into John's past. Dreams can only be made from memories, so the memories of the church must be from John's past themselves, so John at some point must have been in or lived in the church at one point or another. He also must have gone to the candy tunnels as well in order to dream of these details. But it sets up some key points with Gary, Miriam Bell, John, Garcia, the twins, and the church. And this demon thing. Spoiler alerts, it's called the Unspeakable, and if it wasn't obvious by that, the third ending is very much linked to the cult themselves, and this is seemingly what they're trying to summon, the Unspeakable. And now for the longest and most complex chapter in the game.
Now, Chapter 3 is my favourite chapter in the entire game, with it being the most complex and the one with the most secrets within it. And what I like is that the endings within this chapter are determined by what you do throughout the entire chapter, not just the ending choices. Chapter 3 itself is split into 3 separate parts, which take place across different locations across multiple days. Now, as I stated, the endings are determined by your actions you take through during the entire playthrough of Chapter 3. So I will break down my playthrough, my second playthrough, not my stream one because I didn't get the ending I was going for, which was the canon ending, or the true ending in the game, and I'll mix in some bits and pieces here and there to answer some questions that I think need answering along the way as we go along. So let's just get started. We open seeing a car driving along a road reminiscent of the opening cutscene we see when we open the game itself, and a date. September 21st, 1986, the day of the first exorcism in the Martin household. Within the car is John and his mentor, Father Allred. Arriving at the Martin household, the two enter the house and we meet the Martin parents, Bob and Cindy Martin. The father guides us to the basement, and descending we find Amy strapped to a chair. And John awakens from a nightmare. Something you'll immediately notice in this chapter is it is a lot more cinematic with more rotoscope cutscenes, and I think this probably has to do with the game actually getting a full-on publisher with New Blood Interactive. So more money and time was probably pumped into Chapter 3, but also the developer himself just got better at making games as well. But let's continue. October 28th, 1987, 3 days until the Profane Sabbath. The Profane Sabbath is a ritual in which Gary is seemingly going to partake in which we'll see something related to hell be created, and with the help of Father Garcia, John is trying to stop it. Next to our bed is a letter from Father Garcia. John, we don't have much time. The Profane Sabbath is upon us. If they find Nate and Jason, they will perform a ritual on them and call forth a demon of unspeakable power. The name of this demon is Malthus. I'm in the process of discovering their whereabouts. I will contact you again soon. We must not let them do to the boys what they did to Amy. Father Garcia. So the Profane Sabbath is seemingly a ritualistic sacrifice of people in order to call forth demons, or more likely, open the gates of hell themselves. The same ritual that Miriam did all them years ago, and they're trying to call forth the demons, more specifically, Malthus. And we mustn't let the same happen to the boys what did to Amy. So Amy, as it seems, was used to summon a demon themselves. In the living room, another letter from Father Garcia. John, I can't find Nate or Jason Martin in the state foster care system. It's possible that after what happened last year, they went to live with relatives. I will try to find out what I can. Meanwhile, go investigate the clinic where Amy worked. We must find the place where they intend to summon Malthus and disrupt their plans. Vaya con Dios, Father Garcia. So it seems the two boys are not in the foster care system, meaning tracing them is much harder, and Garcia will investigate relatives, but it makes it very clear that our objective is disrupting the summoning of Malthus himself. Now, Chapter 3, as I said, it is split into 3 parts or days, with each day leading us to investigating a key location in the game's overall story. And the first day has us investigating the clinic, which we should have many questions about at this point, the same clinic that Amy volunteered to work at, which is owned by Gary, seemingly. Arriving at a rather not good looking part of town, a police officer stands outside the front of the clinic, so we have to find another way in, going around and finding a poster and informational leaflet for a Beelzebub I'm guessing, and entering the clinic through the window we find a fax machine. Fax to Rhonda Erickson from Gary Miller. Hi Rhonda, just a couple of reminders after last week's visit. Please keep your desk tidy. Our patients need to feel at ease with their healthcare experience. Remember our sales points: clean, quick, courteous.
Do not return any calls from the Department of Health before notifying me first, or leaving a message with Tiffany. We cannot afford another surprise inspection. Please do call me on my direct personal line if you happen to hear back from Mrs. Martin. One more thing, keep Jeffrey out of sight. Remember, Gary loves you. End of facts. So it seems that Gary is quite controlling with his workplace, and he is hiding something from the Department of Health, more specifically something called Jeffrey. I wonder who Jeffrey is, but also he seems to have an interest in a Miss Martin. Now you might read this and you might think it's Amy's parent, but Amy's parent is referred to as Mrs. Martin, not Ms. Martin. So I think this is actually referring to Amy, and it does show that Gary was very open that he wanted to be talking and getting to know and getting Amy in to work for him. Proceeding further, we find ultrasounds with images of babies on them, which is pretty obvious, but some of them don't look quite right, and the third one looks quite demonic, if I say so myself. Continuing on, we find a crowbar. Obtaining it, it allows us to open the front door. But Jeffrey seemingly drags us away, puts us on a gurney, and now takes us away. Doing our best solid snake impression, we sneak our way out and reach the stairs, with a cop now coming to our rescue.
What the hell is going on here? You're coming with me, creature.
And now being escorted out.
I'm gonna need your help. Jesus Christ, what is that thing?
Well, that good American cop shoots and asks questions later, and his car being burnt by hippies, his words not mine, he now lets us go, chasing after the hippies. Now, from here, you would just leave and go back to your car and then return home. But, to get the true ending, you now head back into the clinic and get back on the gurney, and you do this. We now have access to a secret area, and proceeding further, we meet a lady with a baby.
I'm looking for twin boys, named Jason Martin. Have you seen them? Who's Gary? I'm leaving now.
Yeah, she don't seem right, and that baby needs to be dealt with. This boss fight, honestly, is really fun. I really do like Chapter 3's boss fights. They're all really distinct, and they all have really fun, unique mechanics that you have to play around, and it makes combat feel fun in general. Not simple, and, you know, the same thing over and over again. You have to think about what you're doing, and you do have to learn the bosses quite a lot. Now, interestingly, Gary is a normal human being, just like you and me. A very odd statement, and makes you question why even state this in the first place. As what could it be insinuating? Is Gary really just a normal human being, or is he hiding something more demonic, shall we say? Now, exiting, a new note appears on the floor.
Not moves, priests, but the twins are not here. Carry out the works of your God while it is yet day. For the night cometh. Remember, Gary loves you.
Well, it seems Gary is playing a game with us, and he is keeping an eye on us, toying with us a bit. Well, we can't really do much else in the clinic here, so for now, let us return home. And we see a part of the seal being broken. We don't know where the seal is, but we know we are breaking it, indicating that what we did at the clinic with the woman did have an effect on the seal itself, potentially with the profane Sabbath. Well, it seems the first exorcism is very much underway with Amy, but I wonder what went wrong. Or would you look at that? Who decided to turn up at the worst possible time? The good Martin parents. With them coming downstairs, Father Allred tells us that they are very much a weakness and we need to escort them out of the basement. So, us being the ever good employee, we take them upstairs to just get them out the way.
You stay here. That you out there. That's not my father.
But now returning to Father Allred, he is, yeah, that ain't very good. But we must fulfill our job and grab the cross on the floor, and it's back to gold. Oh, this is something I didn't comment on quite yet, but throughout the chapters, the 3 chapters we've been playing through, chapter 1, 2, 3, the gold cross has degraded in its quality. The change in its colour obviously indicates John's change of faith, going from gold to silver to bronze, obviously displaying a deterioration in his faith. Gold is the highest level in alchemy. Gold itself represents perfection, absolute purity, reflecting John's pure and full faith in the Lord. Silver represents change and transition, or an imbalance, kind of. In alchemy, it's a bit hard to sort of link it in, but that's the best I can make out of it. So it represents John's kind of being at a crossroads. His faith is truly being tested, and he could go either way. He could return fully back to the strength of gold, or it could get worse. And now, it has gotten worse. In chapter 3, John's cross is now bronze. While bronze itself, symbolically in alchemy, doesn't really fit the idea of what I'm thinking of, bronze is often looked at as dirty gold. It's not valuable like gold, but it still remains its similar characteristics, shiny and malleable. Gold itself is shiny and sparkles in the light, but bronze itself does this but looks dull. Almost as if John's faith is but a pale imitation of what it once was. He's putting on an act, but deep down he doesn't believe truly that he has faith anymore, or it's really being tested at this point and it's tarnishing his faith truly. October 29th, 1987, 2 days until the profane Sabbath. Waking up the next day, we have yet another letter from Garcia at the front door, and I wonder what is in that room with all the crosses on it as well. But not only a letter from Garcia, but also a letter from Elisa. So first, let's read her letters. John, for now this is the only way I can contact you. I think they're watching me. I need you to come over as soon as you can. The situation has gotten much worse. My address is 665 Orange Street, apartment 5A, New Haven, Connecticut 06511. Thank you, Lisa. P.S. If for some reason I don't answer the door, get the spare key from my friend Tiffany. Right, so this Elisa, who we've never met before, she lives in an apartment building and she seemingly knows John somehow, and they seem to be on rather friendly terms, with her speaking rather casually to him in letters, and she believes she's being watched by them. Them, obviously the cult, so we know what we're dealing with here. And she asks us to come over and basically help her. She also informs us that if we can't get into her apartment, to go to her neighbour Tiffany, who has a spare key for her house. Good info, alright, let's get on to the next letter. John, I don't know if you're getting my letters or not, but I hope you'll be here soon. I really need your help. They're in the apartment. I see them all the time now. I can hear them in the darkness. I haven't slept in days. When you get here, just come straight to my place. Tiffany can't be trusted. Don't talk to my neighbours either. They won't let me leave. Lisa. Oh, shit. Stuff is going down at this apartment, and Tiffany can no longer be trusted. It is very obvious the cult, but how do they have control of the apartment itself? So seemingly, Lisa also has a history with these people as well, the cult themselves, as they seem to be watching her specifically, kind of like how they're watching John. Well, let's read the last letter given to us by Garcia. John, there's an apartment building in New Haven where they may be attempting to summon Malthus. I'm not able to go there myself, it's up to you to stop their rituals. Via con Dios, Father Garcia. So the apartment building itself is a place where they're trying to summon the demon Malthus. With Father Garcia busy with finding the boys, Nate and Jason, it's up to us, and well, it helps that we already have a reason to go there with Lisa, so we race over to the apartment buildings and we enter the next stage of chapter 3, the apartments. And there is quite a bit to do and see here, and there's a lot of no's. Some of them aren't super necessary, so I won't cover everything because there's a lot. But first up, let's summon the level 7 demon, or the elevator friend. This guy is needed to do the true ending, so don't worry, for now I'll explain him in a bit. But on the left of the first door, we can find a third letter from Lisa, which seemingly was meant to be posted, but was dropped at some point. Hello, Mr. Ward. I'm sorry to have worried you. I am perfectly fine. I have not been feeling like myself lately. However, I am much better now. Please do not trouble yourself with coming to visit. I have decided to take an extended vacation in the country, so you will not find me at home. Sincerely, Lisa Pearson. Right, so as I stated earlier, this isn't written like Lisa. It's completely different. It's written by a different person. The different wording, sentence structure, and even tone itself is way too formal. And I wonder who we can think of who writes letters for other people. Who would do such a thing to try stop us from coming? Very clearly it was Gary. Anyway, her room's locked and we have to go to Tiffany's apartment, grab the key, and then head back to Lisa's apartment. Inside, some nice interior decorating and a seal on the door. In the bathroom we can find a note and a blue key. The note reads as follows: if you wish to break this seal of Alu, your answer lies in the blood-stained knife in the face hiding in the deep dark. but only those who have ascended to the highest point can descend to the lowest depths. Remember, Gary loves you. So the seal of Alu has been applied to the door, trapping us and preventing us from moving forward. Alu is an interesting demon. While not as big as the other ones I've mentioned, Lucifer, Malthus, Alu is a demon which causes night terrors, nightmares, and even comas. But why is Alu here, and why is he trapping Lisa more specifically? Well, scattered about the apartment is a couple of other letters regarding Tiffany. Our sister Tiffany has gone against the will of the unspeakable. I thought I could trust her, but I was wrong. Proceed with the original plan. The woman in 5A will be our vessel. Let her pious friend come to our rescue. The unspeakable shall crush them both. So seemingly, Tiffany has gone against the cult, indicating that she was once with the cult, with them still proceeding with the original plan of using Lisa, who lives in 5A, as their original vessel. And in another note, we get why Tiffany did what she did. Every initiated follower knows that in order to bring about this second death, one must sacrifice 7 by passing them through the carved out of the impure vessel's face. Then shall the unspeakable reward thee with the second death. Such was the fate of that whore Amy. My beloved Gary has set his sights far too low. I will surpass her. So it seems that Tiffany here has gotten quite ambitious. Amy brought second death. Second death being death spiritually, as it is believed in life that if you die, your spirit moves on to another being. But second death represents true death. Your soul ends there and then. So second death bringing that about would mean that all humanity would die there and then, ending humanity itself. To achieve second death or bring about second death, you must sacrifice 7 people by sacrificing them through the face, the carved out face of the person, of the vessel, more specifically Amy. We saw Amy with the sort of facial thing with the arm coming out, so you have to sacrifice 7 people with this. Well, we should get back to that seal, with the knife and mask being key parts to investigate for. Going to the 10th floor, we now let go of what we hold so close, the crucifix. Starting at the highest point, and now we descend going down to floor 4 and find an interesting sight and a camera. Using the flash to navigate, we make our way to the basement, literally going to the lowest point in the building. But we meet a rather interesting fellow. This bird-like being is Malthus. Bird-like head, and yeah, it's very much meant to be Malthus. And also the peekaboo demon is back and now chasing us in the basement. So, if Malthus is here, does that mean Malthus has been summoned? Yes, Malthus has been summoned at this point. He is already in this world and he's walking amongst us. But he doesn't seem to be attacking us or doing anything, so maybe he's just chill like that, you know what I mean? Bolting down to the lowest point in the basement as fast as possible, we eventually find and recover our crucifix, allowing us to fight the demons back. Going up the stairs, Alu tries to possess us. But we see Malthus again. And then we break free from the control of Alu. It's almost as if 2 demons were fighting to control us, and neither were letting either fully control us completely, as we weren't fully possessed. We could still control ourselves. And I think that's a key point. I don't think Alu is meant to be here. I think Malthus is very much meant to be the one possessing people, but Alu is making it more difficult. He's sort of annoying Malthus and not allowing him to fully do what he wants. But Malthus doesn't want Alu possessing John either. They need John for some reason. John has a bigger role in this than we know at the moment, and Malthus knows this as well. Obviously working with Gary, for some reason, to bring about the second death. Returning to the basement after we break control from Alu, we find the mask that we've been searching for. Exercising it, we weaken the seal on Lisa's door, and in the same room, a note is on the floor from Tiffany again. My beloved Gary, at last the mask is already stained with blood, my blood. The ritual is complete. You will not find me on this mortal plane, for I am beyond. Look for me in the unseen world, if you dare. Tiffany. Tiffany has ascended beyond and reached the unseen world, the world we entered in chapter 2 when we became a bug-like creature, completing a ritual involving the mask itself. Well, now, going to the 2nd floor, we find the dagger, and exercising it, we can enter the locked door in Lisa's apartment. Entering that locked door...
Lisa, thank God you're alright. Good, what took you so good? It's so dark, I can't see the light anymore. I got here as fast as I could. Let's go, Lisa. I'm not Lisa.
that ain't Lisa. Banishing the demon from her body, it is Alu. And man, I did not like this boss fight. I don't know what I was missing, if I was missing some sort of key thing, but it isn't made clear which statue that Alu goes into, and I don't think it's meant to. You're meant to just guess, but the problem is, if you don't guess correctly, Alu possesses you and you lose control of your body for a bit, with you having to fight against him, trying to kill Lisa. And if you kill Lisa, you get the bad ending. That's the problem. But eventually, you will beat Alu, banishing the evil from the world permanently. I don't know why I skipped her dialogue. I think I just accidentally misclicked it, but I didn't include it in my original script, so I'm adding this on really quick now. To make a long story short, she basically tells us that Gary Miller runs the apartments, which we can gather from another note, and she also tells us that he is trying to resurrect a horrible demon. We already knew that. Father Garcia told us that. Now, we are actually finished here, and we have saved Lisa's life, but we are going for the true ending. We have a little bit more to do to get said ending. First up, we need to play the elevator game. Yes, indeed, the classic online horror no sleep story, and the Korean urban legend. And we do the same exact thing, except there are a few extra floors you need to go to, but even the creepy old lady gets on, which we cannot look at, because if you do... Holy shit, that made me jump. I could heart jump then, Jesus. Now finished in the elevator game, just like the real story, we are taken to another dimension, and in this dimension we can find Tiffany.
My God, Amy, is that you? Who's Gary? You did this to yourself?
And now we fight her, or whatever she has become. And again, Gary is a normal human being. Banishing the foul woman from this world, as I am man of God himself, leaves another note on the floor. Well done, priest. You wasted another day aiding a worthless soul, and got rid of Tiffany for me. Are you sure you know which side you're on? We'll find out soon enough. Remember, Gary loves you. But apparently we wasted yet another day before the profane Sabbath. Now at this point you should just leave, but there are a couple more notes I'm going to quickly throw in here, which I left out, which I'll quickly talk about, as there are a couple of gaps I need to fill, which hopefully this will answer some questions you might be having. First of all, was Tiffany working with Alu? Well, this note from Gary seems to indicate so. Brother and sisters, praise the unspeakable. We've been graced with the presence of another great demon. Alu is here. I do not understand his motive, but he has put his seal over that vessel's door. The vessel's door. This may be Tiffany's doing, but it may also be a test of our faith. Do not cease to pray. Swallow your pills. You may have twice as many as normal. Seal yourselves in with bricks and mortar. And if that so-called priest shows up, take him and eviscerate him over the altar, preferably while still alive. Remember, Gary loves you. It seems Tiffany did work with Alu to seal Lisa away, hiding her from the rest of the cult. And he also warns other occupants about John himself, and that we should be sacrificed upon the altar if we are encountered. But they also have pills. Why do they have pills? Probably to make sure that they stay in line and make sure that they do what they're meant to. It's a very common thing that cults do. They drug their members to make sure that they keep following them and feel that they need them because they often get hooked on these drugs. The cult leaders are the only ones that provide this drug, so it makes this vicious cycle. But why is the cult here? Well, this note answers that. Brothers and sisters, this month will be hosts to a very special visitor. It is here to help prepare the way for the coming of the unspeakable. Of course, due to its special nature, it has full access to the entire building, including your apartments, bedrooms, etc. If you're lucky enough to see it, you would do well not to approach it or speak to it. Find a dark or dimly lit area and try to stay out of its way. One of you will be blessed to find it has made its home in your dwelling. Do not go down into the hole it will make. No matter whose voice you hear down there, if you believe one of your fellow brothers or sisters is inside, please notify me and I will retrieve their remains in a timely manner. Also, just a reminder that rent and utilities are due by Friday. Love, Gary. Gary seemingly owns the building itself, as he is telling tenants when rent and utilities are due, but the unspeakable seems to be getting ready to be summoned, and Gary warns his followers to interact with it as little as possible. But he also says that he is the only one that can retrieve lost brothers or sisters who go through its hole, which I'm guessing the hole is a portal to hell. So it's indicating that Gary is not a human being because he is able to just sort of go willy-nilly to hell without being scared. And also, the little boy that did all the drawings of the elevator friend, Timmy, seems to be sacrificed by Gary, as he was apparently close to Mr. Miller, Gary Miller, and the mother was promised a replacement of the boy. So seemingly, Gary took the boy in this note. So I'm guessing Gary did sacrifice this little boy, or took him away, or did whatever to him, for reasons. So recap, Gary owns the apartments where Lisa lives. He planned on using Lisa as a vessel for a demon, probably Malthus, just like did with Amy, but Tiffany got upset because she wanted to be this vessel, so she worked with Alu to mess up this plan, sealed Lisa away, and Alu possessed Lisa. But then we came in, fought everyone, saved Lisa, and now we leave. And now another part of this seal breaks, and when we return to the Martin household, with us hunting down Amy after we just picked up the cross from Father Allred, indicating that these are all dream sequences. This eventually leads us to the attic, just like the note said in chapter 1.
Amy, let's go back to the basement. Let's go. You need to get better. What about Mary? You shouldn't save her. That's enough. She's here with me. You know. We are doing this here and now. All by yourself. Go ahead. Please, you're able to stick at me. Father Allred, Mr. Martin. Your body's got me. Please.
October 30th, 1987, one day until the profane Sabbath. Hey look, it's on Halloween, the profane Sabbath. Anyway, waking up and heading to the front door, we have yet another letter from Garcia. John, I'm getting reports of children exhibiting strange behavior at the daycare on 4th Street. If Nate and Jason are there, then you can bet that this is the place they will try to summon Malthus. There's no time left. Go to the daycare and find out what's really going on. Fear not. Vaya con Dios. Father Garcia. Well, someone wanting to sacrifice children in the daycare. This would be like fish in a barrel, easy pickings, and Garcia has received reports about it and asks we rush over there, so we do just that, rushing over to the daycare. Out front, there is a standoff of a bunch of cops obviously receiving the same report of children in danger by the cult, and have come to investigate, or more likely, for a shootout. So we need to sneak around the back and going through a hole in the fence to get through. In the playground, a note, or a riddle, which isn't really a riddle, from Gary himself about a gate to hell. Obviously telling us what is going to happen. He is trying to open a gate to hell. In the daycare, they are seemingly taking up painting, especially painting on the walls to make some nice art. And the drawings we can find on the floor and on the walls tell a very sinister story, that the cult itself has infiltrated the daycare, controlling it and being almost like teachers to them. And it's seemingly they have been doing this for quite a while, because almost every photo that is hung up has some sort of demonic creature or a man in red. Gary seemingly runs the daycare as well. Gary has a lot of influence over this world, it seems. He has a clinic, he has an apartment building, and seemingly he also runs the daycare itself. The puzzle in this room itself to open the doorway to the next area is a rather interesting poem about the unholy trinity. Mother Moon watcheth her little ones behind a door asleep. Daughter Chalice is filled, an offering to the master in the unseen world. Spirit bird arriveth from afar and cometh back to roost. These vessels are the unholy trinity. The fallen star shall guide them. What colors can you see? Look to the children if you are lost. Now, the normal Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, everyone knows it. But this one, the unholy Trinity, contains the almost exact opposite. The Mother, the Daughter, and the Spirit Bird. Similar things, but all very different things at that, which indicates that these people themselves are worshipping the opposite of the side of God. The devil himself, Satan. Very obvious at this point. But also something I want to note is the fallen star shall guide them. The fallen star is a very symbolic thing. If you think fallen star, people might think of a fallen angel. Satan. Satan was originally an angel. He is a fallen angel and was on the side of God, but he fell to hell due to him sinning. So it's kind of saying that Satan himself shall guide them. Or, if you want to be a little bit more different, you could say it's the Antichrist. Christ is associated with the star that guided people to him, the star that shone brightest in the night and guided everyone to his birth. So a fallen star would be the opposite of that, a star that cannot shine bright in the sky. It is hidden from the rest of the world and people cannot find it. So it could be either the Antichrist or Satan himself. Could be either or. Something I quite like about this part of chapter 3 is there's actually quite a lot of references and little Easter eggs within it. One of the drawings, for example, has the character from Ultra Kill and is even signed by the developer of that game, RC. You also have the developer of the game Airdorf, his previous game Earl's Day Off, which is referenced with the Uncle Earl photo. And also one of the photos, the Our Family photo, is a drawing that depicts a Charles family with a red figure hanging from the ceiling. This whole concept and this whole way of setting up the family is very similar to a photo that was found around 2009 and was circulating a lot during that time, depicting this. It is quite an interesting story, and the backstory behind the photo is unknown. Some people believe it's real, but a lot of people also believe it is fictional and was only made as a piece of art to display for a horror thing. Don't know what it is, but it's a fun little photo, and it's a cool little reference in general. But in my opinion, the most cool thing about the entire chapter of Chapter 3, the daycare, is this entire daycare thing is based on a real-life cult, like completely. In the game, there is a audio file that you can find. I think it's in the apartments. If you stand there for 10 minutes, the lights go off and you hear whispering. Extracting that file, which honestly, I'm not smart enough to do. I might try to find the original audio files, but we hear a voice basically referencing some FBI files. And these files refer to a cult called the Finders. The Finders were a cult founded in Washington, D.C. in the early 70s by a former United States Air Force Master Sergeant Marion Petit. Now, you're probably wondering, what are the Finders? What were they about? Well, not a lot is actually known about them, but in 87, yes, the same year that we're currently playing the game in, the Finders came to wider public attention when two members of the movement were arrested in Tallahassee, Florida in 87, and they were charged with misdemeanor child abuse against 6 children. Six kids in the church. You're seeing a bit of a pattern here. Now, who are the Finders? Because if you look them up on Wikipedia, there's not actually a lot about them, and the page is very blank. So I have flicked through the FBI records on their government website, and it's an interesting case, I'll be honest. So the arrests in 87 sort of brought the cult to the forefront of everything. Basically, one of the people, who is redacted, I don't know which one they convicted, was actually convicted of sexual abuse of a child. They both were, I'm pretty sure. They both got it, but I'm not sure if both of them did it. But let's say they both did it, because who cares? They're fucking horrible people. So these people were convicted of sexually abusing one of the children. Only one of the children reported that out of these 6. The other 5 did not report it. So they did believe that they were, but they were hiding it because they were so brainwashed. Now, this led the FBI to believing that this was part of a larger conspiracy, and they started investigating more and sort of digging through and trying to find if there was a bigger link to a wider cult in general. In 1993, the FBI then contacted the United States Congressman Rose, Florida. I'm not from the US, so I don't know what the fuck I'm going on about. And they discussed concerns about a group called the Finders. Now, after the initial arrest, the FBI did start digging around to the original mothers, parents, and key figures that they could find that were linked to the Finders cult, but nothing really came of it, and that's kind of what happened to the case. They knew something was happening, but they couldn't really find a way in and to get really into it and really disrupt it. It was very locked down and people were not talking, and that's kind of what you find with cults. But they did know that there was a large group, or a very focused group, who were doing something which involved rituals of some kind. Were they demonic? We don't know, because we don't have enough evidence for that. And I will be honest, I do not want to flick through 1,000 pages of an FBI document that has terrible handwriting. I'm sorry, whoever wrote this needs to get better handwriting, because Jesus Christ, it is hard to read some of this. Solving the puzzle, we descend to a new place. This place is called Garyland. How unique. And this is the home base of the cult itself. On the floor along the hallway is a note about Gary's mother, and staring into the image of her, we see Sister Belle herself, and she starts to deteriorate. This means that yes, Sister Belle, Miriam, is indeed Gary's mother. Staring at it long enough, and we proceed into the main area and a main puzzle now, with a chessboard with 3 demon heads. Trying to solve this puzzle, you can't, it's impossible, and a man darts out of hiding and injects us with something. And we now enter a dream sequence with some very interesting images. The Church of Snake Meadow Hill Row, the 6 children, and 2 of these children are yellow and blue. Images of John and Lisa holding hands, indicating that yes, indeed, these 2 children, the yellow and the blue one, were the ones who would grow up and survived Snake Meadow Hill Road, telling us that John and Lisa have been in the cult's plan ever since the day that they met Sister Belle at the church on Snake Meadow Hill Road, telling us this was destiny itself. And now we are ready to face it. We return to 86, with John having run out of the attic and barricading it behind him, running from Amy because of what he is seeing. He is terrified. He is running from what he is meant to do. Now in the house you can find Amy's parents dead, and you can either run out of the house and get a bad ending, which is this. Woman. Oh no. Or the cannon one, heading down to the basement. Just before Amy gets us, we wake up with a blood trail leading to another room, and entering it, holy shit, someone went crazy. And it seems it was John. After being injected, he went berserk, killing everyone in the room, strangling them, ripping their intestines out, doing absolute brutality. But I ask this, did he actually do this? Was this his actions? Did we see John do this? No. So we cannot say for a fact that John did this. Maybe someone else did this, and they're trying to make John believe that he himself did this, make him really question his faith and believe that he has sinned, he has done a very despicable thing. He has done something on the side of evil, trying to turn him to that side. But nevertheless, it seems John is in some serious shit, so continuing on in the next room, there is a statue of Moloch, yet another quite famous demon, and one that demands child sacrifices, obviously explaining the daycare. Now to open this statue we need to get 3 orbs by playing with mirrors, playing Squid Game, and doing some other stuff, but once you obtain all the orbs, you can move on to the next area. But before that, to get the true ending, you must defeat one last enemy, the unholy spirit, the spirit bird, I guess. So defeating it, it fully breaks the seal, and yes, the 3 bosses we targeted, the mother in the clinic, Tiffany, the apartments, and the unholy spirit, link to the unholy trinity itself, the mother, the daughter, and the spirit. And now we enter the statue, and I got jump scared by the fucking birds. I'm now scared of birds. I swear to God, I'm gonna punch my monitor. Swear to God, these fucking birds. Oh, woman, 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 woman. And we enter a dark forest and we have to exercise some people chained up. But more interestingly than this, we can find a shack in the darkness which seemingly belonged to Gary, my dearest colleague Jacob. Thank you for the letter. I'm delighted to hear the success of your venture in Pennsylvania. However, it was not enough to persuade me to join your cause. I have no interest in crumbling ghost towns, nor government experiments, nor the gibbering behemoths that lurk shamefully in the darkness between worlds. Such matters are not worthy of my expertise. My methods may be more delicate than yours, but I assure you they were given to me straight from the source. The Antichrist will soon seep forth very soon. The second death will consume this world. This pitiful fleshy sphere, still in its infancy, yet everlasting, too late to redeem. When the time comes, I hope we may reunite as cohort, albeit not equals. Love always, Gary. P.S. I almost forgot to thank you for the pet. I will keep it outside my private quarters as a guard against intruders. Jacob. Well, that's a new character, but it seems Gary is not the only cult leader doing what he's doing. But we get a clue on what Gary is truly trying to do. Get the Antichrist to enter this world, and bring true end, the second death, to the world. As I stated earlier, second death is spiritual death, which will bring end to humanity itself. We can also find an image with a man in red, Gary, and two other men on either side of him, a man with a hat in green and an orange man with red eyes. Now I thought, oh shit, we're setting up some good stuff here for a potential sequel. But no, this is more an Easter egg, more specifically to the games Dusk and Fallen Aces. The one on the left, the orange brother, is Jacob from Dusk, a cult leader from that game. The one on the right, however, the man in green, is much harder to figure out, because when this game came out, the game this character originates from hadn't actually come out yet. But with Fallen Aces releases, he seems to be a character called the Killer from Fallen Aces, a more mysterious character which indicates a possible cult-like link with him being close to Gary here. But if you want to be funny about it, technically he isn't a Fallen Aces character. Technically he's a Faith character because his first appearance was in Faith, so you get the point. But it is a crossover characters with two other indie games, which ties into the fact that all New Blood Interactive's games, the publisher of Faith, all take place in the same universe. Kind of cool, I can't lie. But it is a bit disappointing that it's not setting up two other like big cults that we were going to hunt in the next few chapters. But hey, we don't get what we want all the time, do we? But he also got a pet. I wonder what that is. It's an enemy from Dusk, which Jacob sent to him. How the hell do you post that, honestly? Okay, actually breaking the seal and moving through the door in the center of the dark forest, we are transported to another place with a bunch of thralls, and we get an answer to the riddle Gary gave us earlier.
Itself inside the best darkest room where nobody can find it. And sometimes it comes when you guard up to you.
And we finally meet Gary, but John asks for help from something.
Please help me. This is too much for me. I'm so afraid. Please let me escape this place. I just want to go home. I'll do whatever you want. Just take me away from here. I swear it.
With John swearing to this being, he seals the fate of Amy, which is shown by him leaving the house at the end of the first exorcism with the police outside. He is saved from it somehow. But who is this being actually? Initially, seeing a white figure with no discernible features, I thought, oh, that's got to be God himself or an angel of some sort, maybe Gabriel or something. But it actually isn't, kind of. It isn't God, but it is the strongest person who has influence over evil and hell itself. It's Satan. But honestly, the appearance shown here of Satan was I really like. Satan is a fallen angel of heaven, so why wouldn't he look more divine and more heavenly compared to the other demons? This is honestly what I think Satan should look like. He should look more heavenly. He should be much more distinct from other demons like Malthus or Alu. He should look what we interpret an angel to look like, as he was an angel at one point. So John made a deal with the literal devil himself to save himself from being attacked by Amy, but this deal meant that Amy's fate would be sealed. She would 100% become a vessel for the second death, becoming a gateway to hell itself, a being who will allow other demons to pass through and enter the world of man. October 31st, 1987, the Profane Sabbath. Halloween, my favourite day, just behind Christmas Day. A day filled with spooky and heavily associated with the evil of this world and witches. I love Halloween. We now see and meet Gary, and we can ask him some questions.
Do not fret, Malthus has already been summoned to this plan. Did you really think you could prevent his arrival? A simple procedure once the vessel is prepared. First, we carve out their face with the ritual knife. Then we pass a living newborn through the opening and wait for a response. And that, John, is how you make a portal to hell. Are we done chatting? I think you have stood in my way long enough.
Yeah, he isn't a normal human being. And we now scrap with Gary and his... With it getting a bit too much, damn. So I guess guns do work on the devils and demons of this world. Now with the help of Garcia, we move forward into the final room, the crucible of the Profane Sabbath.
I will defend this place as best I can. Don't worry, the throes of the second death are closing in.
And now let's talk endings, as depending on your actions up to this point will determine what you do now. Let's start with the easiest one, the bad ending. Basically, as soon as you arrive at all three of the locations, just leave, you get a rather interesting ending. Inside John's house with all the crosses on the door, he enters and Amy is within it, and he begs Amy to end his nightmares, and she drags John through the portal in her face. John finds himself back at the Martin household, and inside he finds out that the two twins he has been searching for this entire time are not real, and that Cindy Martin actually had a miscarriage at one point when she was pregnant with the two twins. But she was in denial about such fact, and she could not come to terms with it, that she imagined that they were still alive, and even bought things like toys and decorated their rooms, and even hosted parties for them. And this is reinforced by a note earlier that Bob wrote about Cindy's mental health deteriorating, and could explain her hearing things outside and being paranoid constantly and writing to Bob constantly. She seemingly had hallucinations a lot. With Bob being away and Cindy being occupied with things, this would explain why Amy was so easily influenced by Gary and taken away by Gary himself. She didn't have anyone in her life that she could really call family. Her mother had issues and probably preferred the twins to Amy herself, and Bob was busy with work. John, finding the two fake twins, succumbs to his despair, realizing that his entire journey was pointless and that the devils of hell have played him for a fool, and this is the worst ending, with John fully losing his faith and giving up. But why was John so convinced these twins existed in the first place? Well, it seems John's memories of the church, his own memories, the story of him and Lisa, and the story of these two twins mixed together, almost as if he suppressed his own memories of the church. But this story of the twins in the church reawakened their memories and explains the nightmares he was having in chapter 2. All he was thinking about was the twins. He wanted to find them, and he and Lisa were also referred to as the twins, almost as if they were being brought forward and mixed with these memories. So he probably believed that the twins went to the church at one point. Also, the children in chapter 2 being purple also reinforces this idea, and his memories were betraying him. And by chapter 3, he remembers that yes, it was actually him and Lisa in the church, not Nate and Jason, and it's why in the image of the church of the children are grey, not purple, and him and Lisa are blue and yellow, obviously. He remembers the entire memory fully now. This ending is super cool to me. I love it. It's such an interesting ending, and to me, it makes the game feel so much more interesting than it is, because it makes you go back to chapter 2 and reevaluate stuff and make you really think stuff through. It's really cool, genuinely. It's a super cool ending, but of course, it is the worst ending. Next is the basic ending. Basically, don't defeat any of the secret bosses and you just get to the Crucible, but can't get through the seal obviously, so you and Garcia seal the Crucible with the big purple block. Garcia informs John that they have temporarily stopped the ritual of the profane Sabbath, and that one day it will return. Garcia asks John to join him, but Ward declines. Now, depending on if you let Lisa live, i.e. you saved her, or she died in the battle, determines Garcia's next response. If she lives, Garcia is supportive of John's decision, but he eventually convinces John to join him as his student, like he was with Father Allred. Or, if Lisa dies in the Battle of Alu, Garcia forces John to come with him with his gun, knowing that he cannot be trusted on his own and he will very likely turn to the side of the cult or be used by them in the future, just like what happened with Lisa. A bit of a ending, but that's kind of the point. You're meant to then redo it and go for the true ending. The true ending is the New Journey ending. To get this ending, you must defeat the three bosses who embody the Unholy Trinity, the mother and the child in the clinic, Tiffany in the apartments, the daughter, and the Unholy Spirit in Garyland. Doing so, John successfully breaks the seal in the Crucible. Down here we can find a good few notes that fill out some of the questions that you might still have. March 18th, 1934. Miriam is ready. We will perform the ritual according to her instructions tonight. March 19th, 1934. We successfully gave the second death to Miriam. We have been passing living newborns through the newly made portal as quickly as we can get them. So far there has been no response from the other side. March 23rd, 1934. After several days of sacrifices, we finally got a response. A tiny hand reached out from the portal. We took the hand and pulled out a baby boy. It appears to be a normal human baby, just like you and me. We named it Gary. So Miriam became a vessel for the second death, and they passed newborn children through the portal as fast as they could get their hands on them. And in exchange, they might get something. Most of the time they didn't get anything, but after several days of sacrifices, they did get something. A normal human baby boy. Or what appeared to be human, obviously indicating that it is not human. And Miriam took the child and named it Gary, becoming the thing's mother. So Gary is a spawn of hell himself. He is a devil, but which devil is he? Heading to the attic in the Martin household, which we are in now, we now meet Gary.
but we both know how that turned out. You have pursued me as far as I will go. Only one of us gets out alive. I will make you the first mortal to witness the profane Sabbath and the first to be consumed by it. But before I do, I will let you in on a secret.
So Gary's mother Miriam tried to become the unholy trinity, but she kind of failed. But Gary found the perfect vessel, Amy, but it failed due to issues that involve us. But he himself will become the unholy trinity and perform the profane Sabbath and bring about the second death itself, with us being the first to witness it, a bit ominous. Now this boss fight, I really like it, but it is quite hard with a lot of shit happening on screen, and a couple of phases, but fuck, it is really fun in my opinion. Now the second phase has Malthus join us, so we are now fighting two big powerful demons. But phase 3 has both Gary and Malthus possess Miriam's body, becoming Super Miriam, and this is the final fight, and once we exercise the two from her body, we do what we do to truly expunge evil from the world, burn it in holy fire. Now setting it alight, there is no vessel for Gary to go into. But Amy now descends the battle.
Amy, I'm so sorry. I couldn't save you.
With Amy taking Gary, or his true name, Astaroth, back to where he came, she finally forgives us for the mistake we made and thanks us for saving her from the pain Gary has caused her, and John's faith has now been restored and strengthened more than ever. Covered in blood, but even the blood cannot tarnish his faith, displayed by the colour of his character remaining blue and his cross returning to gold. Now Garcia and John leave the daycare, and outside we see quite the interesting scene with the cops being massacred by something, probably the cult becoming desperate, and they leave to his car.
So easy gold. Yes. What I encountered out there was truly unspeakable, but I destroyed it with the help of the Lord. Lord, you destroyed a mighty people and disrupted the profane Sabbath. But the unspeakable is still out there. It must be hunted down and destroyed. You've grown stronger, John, I can see it. I need spiritual warriors like you. John! Lisa, what are you doing here? John, please don't go. You don't have to keep fighting. We can leave this place together. Live the rest of our lives in peace. Lisa, I still have so many questions. I need to figure out this out or I'll never be able to rest. Then let's figure it out together.
Now we are given a choice to leave with Lisa and leave everything that has happened behind us and live a peaceful life following the Lord, or we can join Garcia in his fight against evil to fully expunge it from the world, because we know that some demons and evil people are still out there. But it's your choice in the end. Choose peace and you have no enemies, or what I view as the true ending. John, with renewed faith, knows he has the power to fight evil and becomes a true warrior of God. And so ends chapter 3. I love this chapter. It is so good and the overall payoff is amazing, and it ties the entire Faith trilogy in a nice bow. Honestly, you could end it here now. The general theme of the game, using Christianity and their many figures to create a layered and interesting narrative, is so cool. And while the game in its current state is chunky and fulfilling, it still has a lot more room for more to come. But that's a key point. It's so satisfying just now with just the trilogy. With a rumoured, seemingly, a 4th chapter in development, I'm so excited to see what comes next. But also, there's a fucking movie being made about this game. Like, man, that shit is so cool. But enough of that, enough sort of glazing the game. What was the general message I took away from this game? And like all my recent videos, what message do I want you guys to take from this game and this video in general? And what do I believe is the most important theme to the player as well? From the start of this journey, we followed a man burdened by his past, a man who once let fear and self-doubt define him. His greatest mistake wasn't just his cowardness, it was losing faith in himself and his religion. But through his struggle, he faced that fear head-on, even as he stood against the literal demons of hell themselves. And in doing so, he discovered a profound truth. Bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's the courage to face fear head-on and fight it. His story reminds us that no matter how far we fall, or how dark life becomes, or even if fate itself seems against us, the strength to rise again is always within us. Even when the odds seem impossible, we can make amends, overcome, and reclaim our power. But in my opinion, this is the most important message. If you ever feel like you can't find the strength alone, it's okay to reach out and have someone help you. True strength isn't about standing on your own, it's about accepting help from others and understanding it's okay to accept said help. The strongest among us are often the kindest, the ones who understand what it means to struggle, and they'll gladly lend their strength to lift others up. So never lose faith in each other. Lift one another up, inspire one another, and if you see someone falling, reach out. They may need your help more than you know, and if you're the one who's stumbling, don't be afraid to ask for help. Those who truly care will reach back, and together, you will rise. Because in the end, the greatest strength lies in knowing that we're never truly alone, and that with faith in ourselves and each other, we can overcome anything, even the demons that haunt us. Hello, Croc here. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, like, comment, subscribe, and a shout out to Chelsea and Tyler, one person, I know it's a bit confusing, for joining the Croc company and becoming a member. Your support is greatly appreciated and you bought me a coffee this month, so cheers. If you want to support me further, just watching is enough, but if you want to, you can get early access to videos by joining the Croc company. Anyway, enough sharing. Thank you again for watching to the end. My next video is going to be the start of a big multi-video project. I think it's going to be quite fun. Leave suggestions obviously in the comments, because even though it's going to be a big multi-video project, I do plan to break up the project a bit to make the content a bit more diverse and save my sanity from talking about one game for what is seemingly in my head going to be 6 videos. So please, suggestions are always welcome, and obviously it helps me plan ahead and figure out what I want to do in the future. Because I will try to play all the games that you guys suggest. But anyway, also I might just do one day where I stream a bunch of games. So if you guys leave suggestions and I can sort of work out what games their lengths are, I might just do like a very long stream one day and just stream them all in one go, just to get through them all, because there's a lot of stuff I need to play in general. Anyway, that's enough waffling from me. Thank you for watching again. See you around. Crocodile.